What up, everybody? It's DJ Alpha Tyler, and we are back again. And today I wanted to bring y'all another Monday motivational, but I wanted to do this one a little bit differently. And so I know that I'm driving, I'm just kind of running around a little bit pressed for time and everything. So I'm trying to get this up. Probably won't be too long, but rather than motivate y'all, like I always, try to put something motivational in these videos. Today I want to kind of give y'all my story. I guess I want to give you guys my testimony, because that's something I've never really came out and done. So a lot of people, when you talk about your faith, when you talk about Christianity, a lot of people assume that you grew up in an environment that was kind of supportive of that. I do, for me personally, I did not grow up in a very religious home. I mean, my parents believed in God. I think the first real organized religion that was heavily influential on my life was when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. My grandma and my uncle started going to church, got saved, and all that. Prior to that, I had a couple of great uncles who were preachers. We would go to their church every now and then. It was never like a weekly thing in my house, though. It was never an overly thing. I'm from Kentucky, so we had the 10 Commandments posted and all that, but it was never, further. So for me, though, when I got in high school, I started making some friends who were a little bit older than me, and every Wednesday they went to a youth group. One of those friends, his dad drove a church bus, and so I started going to church through that youth group with them. When I was about 15 was when, I kind of started reconciling. For me, it was a way to hang out with my friends. We would go to church. Everybody got to play some music. They had instruments and everything. Most people were playing guitar around that time, learning how to play. I was playing the drums. We didn't have a drum set in the youth group or anything like that. But we would go, and for me, it was just a chance to hang out with my friends a little bit more outside of school. And then just so you guys know too, like that is one of the things that I've realized, is just how much God uses people around you, whether they realize it or not, whether your intentions are necessarily in that direction or not. How much people can be used for God's purpose, and that's one thing. That's one of the reasons I try so hard at all times to kind of focus people on that when they're losing sight of that, when they're not really thinking about that. Because I do think that's a huge thing. I think that's one of the things, we all very much, we took our religion half seriously. We took the subject matter half seriously. We would talk about it a lot while we were at youth group. But I don't think it was ever overtly. I think everybody was really just there to see their friends. So anyway, I got saved when I was 15. It was at the same youth group one night. I just kind of felt something. We were playing some music, doing an open invitation that night, and I'll never forget, Amazing Grace was playing, and one of my friends, his name was Moosin, he comes up to me and he asked me, he's like, Tyler, have you ever been saved? And I said, no. And he goes, do you want to? He's like, because you kind of, I guess he saw something there. And so he kind of put his arm around me and walked me up, and told the youth pastor what I was kind of feeling, what he was thinking and all that. And so that was the night that everybody prayed with me, and I found my salvation. Shortly after I was baptized, all that good stuff, 17 degrees in January. Over the next couple of years, so you guys know I joined the Army when I was 17. Over the next couple of years, I started going to a different church just with family and more out of convenience. And because, I was kind of pushed there, it was a very different church. And so if you guys ever hear me talk about Baptists and kind of issues with Baptist churches, it is half a joke, but a lot of that does come from the fact that, in the church I'd originally gone to was a non-denominational church. It was very focused on, what does the word say? What are your personal convictions? What is your faith? So on and so forth. Well, the Baptist church that I started going to after that was very, very much, okay, these are things that you should do. This is music that you shouldn't listen to. This is, X, Y, and Z that you can't do. You can't have long hair. You shouldn't have a beard, so on and so forth. And so there were a lot of things like that I didn't personally agree with, that kind of got pushed on to me around that time. And so that was kind of a change of pace for me, though. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, these are all things that I try to share with other people pretty regularly. So a lot of these things, maybe even if you watch a lot of my content, watch a lot of my live streams where we talk about these kinds of things, these are probably things that you've heard me talk about just because, those personal struggles are things that I really enjoy. So over the next couple of years, I kind of started to lose my faith. And it wasn't that I lost my faith. I still believed in God. I just didn't understand how I felt differently than people felt. People around me were feeling about, this thing or that thing. And so I kind of developed that mentality that maybe I wasn't ever really saved. Maybe what I thought happened wasn't what really happened. And so that kind of turned into me not worrying so much about the church, about my salvation, my what I was doing for my services and stuff like that. And so in the Army, in basic training, I would still go to church, usually on Sundays, because you were given that time. Initially, it was from the right spot, from the faith perspective. Over time, it kind of turned into, because this is some time out of the barracks, away from the drill sergeants and stuff like that. And so, by the time I was kind of out on my own, I was 17, 18, and then 19 years old. At 19 was when I went to Afghanistan. 17, 18, and early 19 or so, I was still kind of that mindset of, I believe in God, but, in a sense, to say that I was in that point where, I believed in God, kind of like the household I had grown up in. I believed in God, but I didn't really do anything behind that. I wasn't studying the Bible, wasn't going to church, wasn't seeking out other believers, so on and so forth. Well, I made this friend over that time. His name's Josh, still a good friend of mine. He was the type of guy, he was married, on his way to having a kid, and he was the guy. He would have family game night at his house every Friday, board games, card games, inviting all of his friends, whatever. We were stationed in Arizona together, we went to Hawaii together, and so he was over time just a better and better friend to me. And he started, God was a very important part of his life, and so he started, as he would find churches in the community, he would invite me to go with him. And, I'd tell him I would go, but then I'll get too drunk and I wouldn't go, or, what have you. And so he was the guy, and this is, not just when I was 17, 18, 19, also when I was 21, 22, 20. And so, I'm not saying, the younger aspect of that necessarily. I'm just saying over that time. And he was the guy, if I would it got to a point where he was like, okay, if I don't hear from you in the morning, I'm going to be knocking on your window. And he would walk outside the barracks, and knock on my window until I got up and looked out to see who was knocking on my window. And so, persistence, also having a friend who you connect to, not because they're a Christian, but when you have that connection and you still, insert that aspect, it can be very helpful to people. Anyway, when I was, while I was in Afghanistan was when I really started rethinking my faith, when I really kind of, thought about, okay, well, if I pass away right now, is this the way that I want to go out? Is this the mindset that I want to go out in, the mentality that I want to go out in? Started reconnecting that through my friend Josh when I came back from Afghanistan, started finding churches to go to, so on and so forth. When I got out of the Army, I would go to a church near my house. Again, it was more because I felt compelled to go to a church, to have something to kind of pull me into studying the Bible, dig me into the Word, and get me around other believers. But I say all that to say, I was 28 years old ultimately before I found what I would consider my home church. And a lot of that was through my wife and I deciding that we wanted to raise our daughter in a church, and we needed to find a home church for her to grow up in and around when she was born. And so I guess the moral that I want to share from my testimony is that your faith goes through phases. Your faith is always a work in progress. It's always something that's updating and changing and evolving. And not only yours, but the people around you are going through that same process. Never discredit someone's faith. Never discredit what God is doing in someone else's life from any perspective, whether it's those people who seem to have impure motives, whether it's those people who are pushing you, whether it's those people around you, whether it's somebody that you see who you think is struggling or doesn't look or act how you think a Christian does. Be careful not to interfere with what God is doing in their life. Remember, God charged us to righteously discern. He did not charge us to condemn and push people away from God. And at the end of the day, at the current point, because I'm not at the end of my walk, I'm still in my walk with God, but at the point in my walk that I'm at, one thing that I've truly, truly realized is that our greatest calling as Christians is to not hurt our testimony, not hurt someone else's relationship with God, and not to push someone away from what they're doing with God. And so this is a much longer video than what I'd expected it to be, but what I ultimately want to share with you guys is just the importance of us owning our place, of letting people know about God, letting people know you know, about the love, and then letting God deal with their heart. It's up to us to get them in the door, but it's not up to us to make a full conversion of somebody. None of us are in a perfect place. We're not Christ. And we should always be striving to have the love that Christ had, to have, you know, to minister of Christ, to tell of his love, to tell, yes, we are called to be Christ-like. We are to strive to be Christ-like, but none of us is without sin. If we were, then Christ would have died in vain. And God doesn't make mistakes. And so that's the important part. There are a lot of layers in this. I know that there's a lot in this. And it wasn't something I planned. Obviously, I was driving around. And so what I ultimately really want to share at the end of it is just that understanding of everyone's individual path, their individual walk with Christ, lifting people up and helping them. Don't be a hindrance in someone else's life. And this does, you know, for my friends, because I know I have a lot of friends who haven't started their walk with Christ, aren't on a walk with Christ right now. You know, it's not even exclusive to Christianity. This applies to any aspect of our lives. If someone is moving in the right direction, we can righteously discern. We can still look and say, okay, I don't think that that's a good move. I think that you're making a mistake. I don't think that this is the way that you should be going or the direction you should be moving. But it's never up to us to fully condemn or to stop or to push back someone else's progress, because sometimes what we see as a situation that we're worried about someone that we genuinely care about in isn't always the bad situation that we initially see. Anyway, that's all I got. I know this is long, but I wanted to share all this with you guys. Hopefully you took something from it. If you do, comment down below. Let me know where you're at. And please, I mean, by all means, if you want to share your testimony or pieces of your testimony, by all means, get down in the comments. I'd love to hear from as many people as possible, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out this video. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope you're staying safe, taking care of yourselves. I'm DJ Alpha Tyler, and I'll catch you guys next time.